Konnichiwa, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to my Japanese Faves series where we'll cover every major type of Japanese food. I've read books about the sake making process, studied the process as part of obtaining my sake certifications, and even brewed sake at home twice and visited several Japanese breweries. Recently, I also had the privilege of being one of 3 interns at Daimon Brewery in a small town called Kawachi Iwafune, just outside Osaka. Daimon, founded in 1826, is housed in an old-style building, dripping with charm, which you'll see in the video. As an intern brewery worker called kurabito, I was able to help with every step in the process of making Daimon sake. Comparing the Daimon process to the processes I observed at other breweries, I was impressed with Daimon's artisanal, handcrafted approach. Although some equipment is used, the process is very much hands-on. For example, after adding steamed rice, koji, and water to the mash, or moromi, it is hand-mixed, which is a very laborious process in the big tanks you'll see. Handcrafting is apparent in every step of the process. I should also mention my co-interns, Art Devant and Dave Hora. They are both passionate about making sake. Art plans to open a brewery in the Netherlands, and Dave plans to do the same in Portugal or Spain. I wish them all good luck. So let's start learning. For premium sakes, milling of the rice is the first step. It can be done in-house at the brewery or contracted out. Daimon doesn't mill in-house, but milling isn't done by hand. It's done by big machines like the one shown here from a different brewery. Daimon buys the rice it wants, milled to the rice polishing ratio, or RPR, that it needs for its handcrafted sake. Now the next step in the sake brewing process is resting the rice. And this photo, by the way, also is from a different brewery because Daimon doesn't mill their rice. They buy pre-milled rice, so they don't have to do the resting step. But whoever mills the rice, whether it's the brewery or an outside contractor, they must rest the rice for about 2 weeks to absorb ambient moisture. This is called karashi, and which is also the word for mustard in Japanese, which I don't quite understand, but this is called karashi. We're about to start brewing. This is Daimon-san, patriarch and Kuramoto of Daimon Shuzo. He's a great guy who cares very much about making sake and maintaining his family heritage. He's very hands-on, just like the Kura's brewing process. Now, because Daimon doesn't do the milling and resting step, the first step at Daimon Shuzo, and also for us as interns, was measuring and weighing rice to the recipe for each of the sakes that are brewed at the brewery. We measured and weighed about 1,800 kilograms, or that's about 4,000 pounds of rice, and we measured it 10 kilograms at a time. So you see a photo there of my co-intern, Dave Hora. He is scooping rice out of a bag and putting it into another bag that's on a scale. The next steps happen together: washing the rice, soaking or steeping it, and then drying it. At Daimon, this is all done by hand in kind of a well-choreographed dance. First is the washing, called senmai, with washing water called senmai yusui. Some say washing and soaking are the most important step. At Daimon, washing, soaking, and drying are measured by a clock's second hand. They start with this small device, washing 10 kilograms at a time. Co-intern Dave Hora and kurabito fill the hopper. The hopper fills as water swirls in. Close the lid and let it run a precise time. Then open the bottom valve, and rice drains into a mesh basket lined with a fine mesh bag, and that basket is slid out. Then the rice is rinsed for a precise time, and the next basket slides in after the hopper is filled with the next 10 kilograms of rice. Now here we are at the soaking step, but keep in mind that every single one of those mesh bags of rice that comes out from the washer goes directly into a soaking tub. So this is kind of an assembly line type process too. One of the kurabito grabs the bags when they come out of the washing, and they puts them into one of the soaking or steeping tubs. The soaking or the steeping is called shinseki, and the water that's used to do that is called shinseki yosui. Again, the soaking or steeping step is precisely timed. Now the next step I call drying, but it's not really drying. It's removing excess water from the rice that has been washed and steeped. I think this little machine is kind of like a vacuum type of a device. Again, we did one bag at a time, 10 kilograms at a time. And again, very precise timing. Now I want to talk here a little bit about cleaning. Now I'm discussing it here so it doesn't disrupt the flow of the sake brewing process. But cleaning happens all the time at every step. Cleanliness and precision are important in every step of the process. Partly to get consistent results, partly so that the sake turns out the way that the toji wants it to. And without the cleaning and without the precision, a whole batch of sake, maybe months of work and cost, could be wasted. The cleaning also illustrates the manual labor of brewing sake. It's often hard work. It's often hard on the back because we have this, we have these basin on the floor here, and we're washing out the mesh bags that were used to wash the rice. But every single piece of equipment gets washed after it's used. The interns did it for a short time. The kurabito do it every day. The next step is steaming, and steaming involves several steps. Steamed rice is needed for the moto or fermentation starter, and also for the moromi or mash. It's also needed for the koji. The rice is steamed fresh for each step, the 4 times the koji is needed and the 4 times the rice is needed. So there's lots and lots of rice that gets steamed. First step is to move the rice into position. The first time we steamed rice was a long day. It started at 5:30 a.m., which is common in a sake brewery. I joked that we did a whole day's work before lunch. The rice was in mesh bags after it was washed, soaked, and dried. Now the bags are emptied into the steamer, which is called a koshiki, which is lined with a burlap-like material. There's kind of a zen quality to the raking. It's kind of like sand raking in a Japanese garden. The koshiki is covered and steaming begins. On the rail, you see pieces of burlap-like cloth. These will be used later to remove the steamed rice from the koshiki. After the rice is steamed, it needs to be removed from the steamer, but it's much heavier than it was before steaming, and it sticks together. The rice is shoveled out onto the burlap cloths that hung on the steamer rail. The corners of the cloth are brought together and twisted to make the satchel, which is moved away from the steamer. As you will see, it's quite a job to get all of the rice out of the steamer. Rice is added to the moromi 3 times. The third addition requires more kakamai than can be easily shoveled out of the steamer by hand. This photo, which I love, shows the third addition being lifted from the koshiki with a winch. The next step after the steaming of the rice is the cooling of the rice to the proper temperature. This is called hore. For the rice that's being used for koji, the rice for the moto, and for the first and second editions, it's removed from the steamer by hand, as you saw, using the burlap cloths. Then it's taken to a cool room, spread out to cool to precise temperatures, depending on its next use. And you see here, it's on trays, it's on the pieces of burlap that were used to take it out of the steamer, and this rice is being spread out so it has more exposure to the air in the cool room, and it will cool faster. A thermometer is inserted into the rice, and when the right temperature is reached, then it can be used for whatever its next purpose is. For the third addition to the moromi, there's too much rice to remove and cool by hand. So the huge mesh bag of rice you saw being lifted by a winch is brought to one end of a machine called a horeki. John Gautner, who taught my sake professional courses, calls this machine the breaker upper cooler downer, which reminds me of an old Jack Lemmon movie. The huge mesh bag has a drawstring at the bottom, which is opened slowly to allow the rice to drop into one end of the breaker upper cooler downer. It then moves along a conveyor belt, and the machine partially breaks up and cools the rice. As it comes out, all hands are on deck to finish breaking up the rice as it moves by. The rice cools as it moves and falls into a hopper at the other end of the machine.